Incantation, more like I can't be taking this music seriously because it's so mid. Am I right, folks? Am I right? Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I deserve the booze on that one. I humbly accept this L. That was not my best work. I sat here for 15 minutes, and that's the best intro I could come up with. Not my finest hour. Although, if we're being honest, I feel as if I spent the same amount of time on that intro that Incantation did on this album, and this is very likely to be celebrated to hell and back, so whatevs. Anyways, on that note, hello, hi, how are you, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Incantation entitled Unholy Deification, and if we're being brutally, totally honest here, not a fan. Not feeling this. Right off the bat. This is the 12th studio album from these pioneers and poster boys of American Death Doom, and I've got nothing against them. You know, they've made plenty of jams and bops and bangers in their time. Early records like Onward to Golgotha, Mortal Throne of Nazarene, and especially Diabolical Conquest, I think rank as some of the most brutal and disgusting and gnarly death doom, not just of their time, but possibly within the entire genre. Despite a nearly ungodly amount of changes to the lineup over the years, with as many new members as there have been Trump indictments as of late, Incantation has remained a relatively consistent and successful band, I would say. I mean, not everything they've done has been like amazing, but most of what they've done has been pretty good. Like we're talking within the 3 out of 5 to 3.5 out of 5 range ish. 2020's Sect of Vile Divinities in particular, I thought was a really strong record. And I actually thought last year's career-spanning compilation record, Tricennial of Blasphemy, was pretty solid as well. With this in mind, there was no reason not to expect a good, solid, nutritious, hearty meal of American Death Doom from Incantation, especially after reading some blurbs and shit online. With the band's singer, guitarist, founding member, and frankly their only semi-stable member, John McEntee, writing, "I'm not interested in playing it safe. I think other people feel that there are limits to what we can do. However, I don't see it that way. If it feels right, then it's Incantation." A very bold statement, to say the least, considering I would genuinely sit here and argue that the aforementioned Tricennial of Blasphemy, a career-spanning compilation, essentially their reheated leftovers, feels and tastes and sounds fresher than most of what I'm hearing on this album. It's like really average Incantation worship, but regurgitated by Incantation themselves. Throughout my first playthrough of this album, I found that I was having absolutely no reaction whatsoever, positive or negative, to anything on this album. It just kind of flew right by. Well, maybe not flew, more like dragged, lumbered, slowly jogged like an old tortoise. But you get the idea. There are some bright-ish spots here and there, to be fair, I shall say. For instance, Chalice has an appropriate and satisfying amount of death metal bombast with some blistering percussion and some very sinister riffage. Homunculus, I would say, too, is a memorable cut. I like its winding, bending, like classic Doom riffs in the very beginning and some of the more ominous, spacious textures introduced later on. It kind of feels like Celtic Frost trying their hands at Death Doom. Like, it just has this really dark, moody underbelly to it. Circle, I think, is a solid cut as well. It closes this album on a pretty strong and mysterious and murky note with some very slow, monotonous doom eventually blossoming into some more, like, carnivorous death metal and extreme metal madness. And, fuck, what else is there on this record? Yeah, that's all I got, really. There's just nothing really that exciting or interesting happening here. Contrary to what Incantation would have us believe, this is essentially Incantation doing what is expected of them at this point in their career, but with not as much enthusiasm or memorable songwriting. Like, the reason why bands like, say, Cannibal Corpse or the Black Dahlia Murder, or even Overkill can get away with writing the same record over and over and over again is because there still feels like there's something new each time. It feels like there is growth. It feels like there is some change, even if it is extremely subtle. But with this album, I feel like Incantation is occupying a territory more like that of Cataclysm, where we're really just kind of doing the same thing over and over, but with less sizzle. And this translates to other aspects of the album as well. Like, the production here is pretty flat consistently across the board, which is a shame because I feel like some of the edge and filth of earlier records would have done this a world of good. This is gonna sound weird, but I'm also genuinely confused by the track listing. Like, they're all numbered, obviously, but they're also numbered again in, like, Roman numerals, and they're, like, out of order, and that's kind of odd, and that has me questioning if there's some kind of story that's just been chopped up, but as far as I can tell, this was literally just an artistic decision. I don't know, man. Maybe my autistic brain is overthinking it, but it just seems weird to me that you would renumber the tracks, and then you would also then have them intentionally out of order. Like, I don't get that. Am I supposed to listen to the tracks in order of the Roman numerals? That unfortunately works further against the album because now there's a disconnect and I'm just kind of sitting here feeling like I'm lost, feeling like there's something else happening that I'm just not picking up on. Honestly, I started this review feeling like I would give this album a 2.5 out of 5. Now that I'm sitting here really talking about it and how it's been laid out, and everything else, I'm honestly feeling a 2, like straight up. I thought this record was honestly pretty mediocre. There's very little reason to return to this record, I think, after having heard it. Honestly, you'd be better off just listening to some classic Incantation or even returning to other records like Sect of Vile Divinities or Profane Nexus. I just think that those are way more consistent and brutal offerings. Yeah, I don't know. Incantation, for me at least, just kind of dropped the ball here. I feel like I'm going to be in the minority. I've seen mostly positive reviews across the board. If that's the case, so be it. I'm happy people are enjoying this thing. Good for them. Good for you if you happen to be one of them. But yeah, I think I'd rather just go listen to Diabolical Conquest again. Or, you know, even some other, like, cool Death Doom, you know, like Hooded Menace, some classic Autopsy. Like, this just does not... This just ain't doing it for me. 2 out of 5, pretty mediocre if you ask me. An argument could very easily be made that this is the band's worst album to date. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Alright then. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.